Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be looking at virtual networks in Azure. So what's a virtual network? So a virtual network provides the fundamental building block, right, of private network in Azure. So I know you may not really understand what this is all about, but I'll provide an illustration that will make you understand. Let's say you want to create a virtual machine, right? You want to create a virtual machine. If you don't understand what a virtual machine is, I have a video where I treated that, so I will link that in the description below. So let's say you want to deploy a virtual machine and you did not select a network. What will happen is that it will be deployed in the default network or the public network. So now you can see that company A deployed their resources, or let's say, for example, virtual machine. Company A deployed their virtual machine on the public network. The same thing, company B deploy their virtual machine on the public network. This also include other resources as well. So once you don't choose a particular network to deploy your resource to, it will definitely deploy it on the public network. And this means that, let's say, Google as a company wants to deploy um, their resources on Azure without selecting any network, it will definitely deploy it on the public network. The same thing with Netflix, right? It will deploy this on the public network, which means that these two companies are on the same network. Now, see the bad side of it. So now, if an attacker or a hacker attacks this particular network, what it means is that if the hacker is able to break into this network, it will have access to both Google and what Netflix, right? And this is not good for any cloud provider. And that is why Azure said, no, how can we make this better? How can we put more restrictions so that even if you hack into the public network, other companies will have their own private network, which you still need to break into. And that is where um, the virtual network comes in. So you can see the virtual networks. So the virtual network is like a private network. So if you log in into Azure, you need to break into the virtual network of that particular company before you can be able to access their resources. So that's what virtual network is. I hope you understand that. So let's go to the terminologies we need to understand. So the first one is the classless interdomain routing, which we usually call the CIDR. So the CIDR determines the size of a network. So if you don't understand what a network is, I have a separate video for computer networking, which I will link in the description below. I also treated CIDR in details in that video. Make sure you check that video out after watching this one. So the CIDR determines the size of a network, which in turn determines the number of resources like virtual machine and other resources in that particular network. So the next one is the network security group, which is no NSG. So the NSG is a rule or set of rules or policies that determines how traffic flows in and out of what your resources. For example, if somebody wants to visit your website, so the network security group determines whether the person is able to access your resources or not. So that is what the network security group, or the NSG. Now let's give examples. So like this is your website or your resources where your application is running. Now, if somebody wants to access this website, so now the NSG will now check whether the person is this person does this person have access to these resources or not. So that's the NSG. So the next one is the app security group. So the app security group determines, right, the flow of traffic, or how traffic flows between two or more components, right, on your network. So we talk about the routing table. So the routing table determines how traffic flows on the network, right? So now let's talk about the ASG. Let's give example of how the ASG work. So the first thing is what, let's say somebody tries to access your application. So now, if the person types www.examples.com, so the first thing that will happen is that the NSG will now check if the person has the access, or is it the person eligible to access your resources. Then if the person is able to access the resources, then the ASG will now check if what the front end is able to access the back end, right? So for example, in prod, the back end can only be accessed by the front end. So let's say you want to connect from your computer, you want to connect to the back end from your computer. It will not allow you access, because you are not allowed to access that particular component or application, except the traffic is coming from the front end application. So that's the ASG. So now let's look at how three-tier architecture work. Let's look at how three-tier Now let's look at how three-tier architecture work. So now so let's say this is your system and somebody is trying to access your application, right? So now if the person tries to access your application, the first thing the traffic will meet is the firewall. So the firewall will check if this request should go through or not. So if the request has the access to go through, then it will go. If it is not, then it will deny its access. So now, after that, it goes to the load balancer, right? Or what we call the application gateway in Azure. So application gateway is a level 7 load balancer. So it will go to the application gateway. So this application gateway will now route the traffic to the front end. By the way, if you don't understand what a load balancer is, I have a separate video for that, which I will also link on the description of this video. So when it directs the traffic to the front end, let's say, okay, now the front end will now direct the traffic to the back end, right, which is the business logic. For example, if you have if you're on a website that you are meant to fill a form, then after filling the form and you click on submit, it is meant to store your data somewhere, maybe like a database. So now, and it is the back end or the business logic that stores this data on the database. So it will route the traffic or the request to the back end, and the back end will now route it to the database where the data is stored. And also, if you want to pull the data from the database, it follows the same procedure to get that data for you to see them. So that is how the three-tier architecture work. So this is where we will stop for this video. Thanks for watching. If you like what we do, don't forget to subscribe and like, and also share with your friends. Um, Subscribe so that you can stay updated with new videos, so that when we post a new video, you will be notified. Thank you. See you on the next video.